15 CO stars that almost killed each other on set. Sometimes it can be hard to remember that what we see on screen isn't always even remotely close to the truth. No matter how much an actor might get typecast as the bad guy, they probably aren't killing puppies or setting up bombs in real life. And no matter how much it may seem like two characters are best friends or are even deeply in love, that might not be the case behind the scenes. We've all been in a situation where we just can't stand one of our coworkers, and when you have to work closely with them, it can suck even more. That must have been how these actors and actresses felt. Imagine having to pretend to like someone day in and day out, when really you just can't stand being in the same room as them. Imagine being forced to kiss someone that you just utterly despise. It can't have been fun, but then that's probably why they get paid so much. In some cases, these intense and bitter hatreds ended up nearly jeopardizing the whole movie, or even resulted in a cast member being fired. If you've ever wondered why your favorite character suddenly got recast on that TV show, or why a couple of CO stars never worked together again despite having such a smash hit, you are about to find out. This is what happens when CO stars get chummy on screen but despise each other behind the scenes when the cameras stop rolling. 15. Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. Back in 1996, Leo was just 22 years old, and Claire was 16, both of them young enough to be governed by hormones and stupidity more than adult logic. But even despite their 6-year age gap, Claire found Leo way too immature during Romeo and Juliet. The pranks that he would play on the cast and crew were too much for her. In return, he found her uptight. Even though they portrayed one of the greatest romances of all time on screen, they apparently couldn't stand each other. It got so bad that they would go out of their way not to speak to one another unless they were actually filming a scene. It's incredible that they managed to create such a beautiful romance on the screen whilst hating each other all the while. Leo never grew out of playing his pranks during filming, so it seems like they still wouldn't get along even now. 14. Bill Murray and Lucy Liu. Bill Murray is notoriously prickly, so it's perhaps no wonder that these two didn't get on. Apparently, however, there was a specific starting point for their feud. Bill told Lucy that she couldn't act, which was probably not going to make him a new friend no matter who he said it to, in all honesty. He later said of her, "Look, I will dismiss you completely if you are unprofessional and working with me, when our relationship is professional, and you're not getting that done, forget it." Ouch. It seems like Lucy had the last laugh, however. When the second Charlie's Angels film came around, Bill had been replaced by Bernie Mac. Whether this was a tactical removal on her part, or a refusal to work on his, remains to be seen, but it's clear that the two were able to find a way to get out of working together again. 13. Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. Looking at Ryan and Rachel, you would have to think that their turn in The Notebook was simply a prelude to the relationship they went on to have. After all, when playing a pair of romantic leads, it's easy to imagine that romance would blossom behind the scenes at the same time. But in fact, the truth was far from this rosy vision. They actually hated each other on set, and it wasn't until later that the attraction dawned. Director Nick Cassavetes said, "Maybe I'm not supposed to tell this story, but they were really not getting along one day on set. Really not. And Ryan came to me, and there's 150 people standing in this big scene, and he says, 'Nick, come here.' And he's doing a scene with Rachel and he says, 'Would you take her out of here and bring in another actress to read off camera with me?' I said, 'What?' He says, 'I can't. I can't do it with her. I'm just not getting anything from this.' They made up after screaming at one another for a while. 12. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze. Another great romantic film, Dirty Dancing, sees Jennifer and Patrick's characters falling in love despite the odds. But it was kind of the other way around for these CO stars. When Swayze published his autobiography, The Time of My Life, fans were treated to some insights into the filming. He says that Jennifer did a great job with the movie, but behind the scenes, it was a bit of a nightmare to work with her. We did have a few moments of friction when we were tired or after a long day of shooting. She seemed particularly emotional, sometimes bursting into tears if someone criticized her. Other times, she slipped into silly moods, forcing us to do scenes over and over again when she'd start laughing. For example, the scene where she keeps laughing as they're trying to rehearse, and his resulting frustration, were not part of the script he wrote in the book. 11. Shannon Doherty and Alyssa Milano. Shannon has a pretty poor reputation in the acting world, as apparently she's a nightmare to work with on set, and this has cost her more than one job. When she started out on Charmed, she was paired up with Alyssa as well as Holly Marie Combs, playing sisters with them. In 2001, however, she suddenly left the show amid wild rumors. Finally, in 2013, Alyssa had this to say: "I don't know if she got fired, we never really found out what happened. I can tell you that we were on the air with her for 3 years and there were definitely some rough days. Holly and Shannon were best friends for like 10 years before the show started, so it was very much sort of like high school. I would hope that in our 30s it wouldn't feel like that anymore." She had already stated, "We definitely didn't get along. Shannon and I are very different people, and I think it's almost like a roommate. If you spend that much time with someone and there are differences anyway, you're not always going to get along." 10. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford had a legendary feud which went on for many years before they filmed Whatever Happened to Baby Jane together. Crawford apparently ended up getting married to Frank Catone despite the fact that Davis was in love with him, a fact she knew well. Davis said, "She took him from me. She did it coldly, deliberately, and with complete ruthlessness. I have never forgiven her for that and never will." It was almost 30 years later that they starred together, and the hatred was apparent from the start. Davis kicked Crawford in the head during a fight scene, leaving her in need of stitches, and she once said, "The best time I ever had with Joan Crawford was when I pushed her down the stairs in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane." These two never managed to bury the hatchet before their deaths. 9. Melissa Gilbert and Melissa Sue Anderson. We've all had that uncomfortable feeling where we don't like someone because they have the same name as us. For these two Melissas, it went much further. They starred together as kids on Little House on the Prairie, playing sisters, but could never actually get along. Gilbert said in 2014 that Anderson was hateful, horrid, mean, terrible, mean, difficult. She hated me. She knocked me off the wagon when I was 9. A third actress on the show, Alison Arngrim, admitted that Melissa Gilbert and I wound up bonding and becoming best friends like sisters, and Melissa Sue became sort of the frenemy. So we were with her all day, but I guess she was like, "I'm not hanging out with you two." She was just sort of appalled by Melissa Gilbert and I. Funnily enough, Gilbert also has a major problem with Shannon Doherty, who ended up having a one-night stand with Gilbert's first husband. So that's one more star who would never work with her. 8. Martin Lawrence and Tisha Campbell. Anyone hoping for a reunion of Martin will be sorely disappointed. Tisha played Martin's on-screen wife, Gina, but it is rumored that the two of them had an affair behind the scenes. She then went on to get engaged to Dwayne Martin, which wasn't taken very well by her co-star. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the serious from there. In 1996 she quit the show and filed a lawsuit in early 1997 against Martin. She alleged that he had showered her with both emotional and physical abuse and also claimed he had been sexually harassing her. She returned to the show a couple of weeks later, but only under one condition, that if she was filming a scene, he would not be on set. When they filmed the hour-long finale a couple of months later, they did the whole thing whilst never being in the same room. Talk about bad blood. 7. Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe and Tony Curtis were once in a heated relationship, which is why they seemed like such a good casting choice for the on-screen lovers in Some Like It Hot. Of course, things don't always go according to plan, or according to expectations. Before they started filming, their real-life relationship went sour, and Marilyn carried a chip or two on her shoulder about the whole experience. Curtis has since said that kissing her on set was similar to kissing Hitler. He went on to elaborate that, "It was awful. She nearly choked me to death by deliberately sticking her tongue down my throat into my windpipe." Clearly, Marilyn had neither forgiven nor forgotten the way things had worked out for them behind the scenes. It's a shame, as they could have had some real chemistry on screen as two people who already knew their way around one another's bodies. 6. Julia Roberts and Nick Nolte. Julia and Nick first met while filming I Love Trouble, where they starred opposite one another. It's fair to say that they disliked each other instantly and things just went downhill from there. Even through the intervening years there is no love lost between the two of them. Julia described him as completely disgusting, and went on to add that he seems to go out of his way to repel people. As for Nick, he had his own take on the situation. He told Flavor Wire that, "She's not a nice person, everyone knows that. Seems like there is real bad blood here." Julia's already known for a long-running feud with her own brother, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Nick is in the right here. It seems that their personalities simply aren't compatible with one another. We can guarantee that you won't be seeing them starring in another rom-com together. 5. Sharon Stone William Baldwin. When they started filming Silver, Sharon Stone and William Baldwin immediately started to hate each other. They didn't try to hide it, either, and everyone on set knew that there was mutual dislike. It ended up almost derailing the whole film. During a kissing scene, Sharon deliberately bit William's tongue, an action that was sure to leave him hating her more than ever before. When they got towards the end of the shoot, director Phil Noyce said, "I ended up having to shoot many of their clothes UPS with only one of them in the room at a time, because they didn't want to look at each other." That could have been very costly for the duo if they weren't able to finish their scenes, and it certainly set the film back in terms of schedule. It's perhaps even more irritating to know that the film wasn't a particular success, despite the trouble it took to film. 4. Jamie Foxx and LL Cool J. Sometimes, bad blood between actors ends up spilling over and causing a lot more trouble on set. Jamie Foxx and LL Cool J started arguing on the set of Any Given Sunday in 1999, and their disagreements quickly spiraled and got out of hand. They were filming a scene at the Pro Players Stadium in Miami when things really came to a head. They started exchanging blows, and the Miami-Dade County Police had to be called to intervene. The altercation came to a close, and at some point the actors managed to put this feud behind them. However, it does cast the film in a whole new light, knowing that the two stars came close to getting arrested for assaulting one another because they disliked each other so very much. It's not often that a mutual hatred between adult actors comes to cause this level of problems behind the scenes. 3. Harrison Ford and Josh Hartnett. These two leading men seriously didn't get along. While filming Hollywood Homicide, Josh described Harrison as an old fart, which apparently didn't go down too well. He later said, "He's an intimidating guy. He tested me to the limit, so I hated him for a while." It didn't blow over quickly, either. They continued to bicker all the way through the film's promotional tour. Said Hartnett, "There were times we would end up just sitting in the car when we were supposed to be doing a scene and neither of us would say anything for like an hour." Harrison retaliated by calling him a punk, and the fact that the film bombed did nothing for either of their careers. It perhaps didn't help Harrison's growing reputation as a grumpy actor who is tough to work with, either. There's no way these two are going to be shaking hands and making up any time soon. 2. Channing Tatum and Alex Pettyfer. While filming Magic Mike, Alex Pettyfer apparently got on Channing Tatum's bad side. He reportedly disliked Alex's attitude on set, which wasn't as professional as he would have liked. Things only got worse from there. Alex was renting an apartment from one of Channing's friends and he ended up not bothering to pay rent. With Channing obviously taking his friend's side, the bad blood between them only deepened. Alex admitted to the issues between them after filming had wrapped, but he wasn't shy about taking the blame. "Channing Tatum does not like me, and for many reasons, and many being my own fault," he said in an interview. It seems that this one was simply another case of an actor being too immature to handle things properly on set. If he could have cleaned up his act, surely things would have been a lot better between them. 1. Will Smith and Janet Hubert. Surely there wasn't tension behind the scenes on the set of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Sadly, yes. Actually, Will Smith and his co-star Janet Hubert, who played his Aunt Vivian, had a long-standing feud which started on set. Back in 1993, Hubert and some other actors on the show were trying to negotiate for a pay rise. Smith, the star of the show, refused to help her out. Things became very tense between them, and as a result, Janet left after 3 seasons. They even made a reference to the replacement for laughs when a new actress was cast for season 4. Over the following years, Will and Janet traded insults in the press, making it clear that there was no love lost between them. Proving he is ever classy, Will has since paid compliments to Janet and wished her well. It's a shame that they simply couldn't make up during the run of the show in order to avoid problems with casting.